We're celebrating the 70th birthday of Disneyland Park here in Anaheim, California, and we have a super fun video planned for you today. We're going to go back in time 70 years to when this park first opened and compare that with how it looks today 70 years later. We got a lot to do, so let's get to it. Hi-ho everybody, this is Rob with Ear Scouts coming to you from Disneyland Park in Anaheim on July 17th, 2025. Today is 70 years from the day that Walt Disney introduced this park to the world in a special live broadcast. Our friends over at Edge Projects actually remastered that opening day broadcast from 1955. It was the most ambitious live production of its day, and it featured some guest appearances from famous faces like Ronald Reagan and Art Linkletter. If you want to watch that whole broadcast, we recommend go over to Edge Projects. They have posted the entire remastered opening day video, and we'll put a link to that in the description down below. But in today's video, we're going to take some clips of that opening day broadcast, and we're going to show you how things have changed in these last 70 years. You're going to be surprised, actually, at how much looks almost exactly like it did when Walt Disney himself opened this park to the public. And we're going to start by unlocking some special magic that Disney has added for the 70th anniversary. We got a whole lot to do, so let's get to it. Our first stop of the day, of course, is going to be Main Street, USA. But before we explore Main Street, we've got one very important task to do. We've got to find the lock station for Main Street. That's because Disney has created these lock stations at the different lands of the park. And you can purchase this very fancy key to Disneyland. It's $59.99, and it will unlock those different lock stations. It also lights up, and there's some sound effects involved. You can hear the voice of Walt giving the original introduction to the park 70 years ago. It's a cool little toy, but it's also going to have an interactive element as we go throughout the park. Each lock station is going to create a magical moment, and at the end, we're going to come back here to the front of the park for the finale lock station. And when we put this key in that lock, it's actually going to open up a secret chamber inside where we're going to find a pin. There's actually a lot of different pins you can get in these, so if you want to collect all the pins, you're probably going to spend a lot of money on keys to Disneyland. Eric has agreed to be our key master today, so as we go around the park, he's going to put the key in each of the locks, and we're going to see what sort of magic happens. Our first key station is going to be here at the Disneyland Fire Department. Now, this was here on opening day, as was the apartment above the fire department. That was Walt's personal apartment, and he actually spent a lot of time there. Even while the park was being built, Walt would a lot of times spend the night in his little apartment. Nowadays, they still keep that lamp on for Walt right there in the front window. One really funny story about Walt's apartment here, there was a kid shortly after the park opened who decided he was going to climb the fireman's pole that was inside and find out what was at the top of the pole. Well, that was Walt's apartment, and he happened to be there when the kid did this. Shortly after that, Walt asked the Imagineers to figure out a way to seal up the entrance so that he had no more surprise guests coming up the pole. Well, let's start our Main Street adventure by heading inside, and Eric, the Keymaster, is going to open our first lock of the day. Now that we've unlocked Main Street USA, it's time to jump on our first opening day attraction, the Disneyland Railroad. Now, when this attraction opened, it was sponsored by the actual Santa Fe Railroad Company, so it was known as the Disneyland Santa Fe Railroad. Another fun fact about it, it was not owned by the park. Walt was so passionate about this train, and he wanted everything to be exactly the way that he wanted it. So he personally paid for this train and oversaw everything every part of its development, and he retained that ownership initially. The park paid Walt royalties for use of the train and eventually decided to buy it outright from the Disney family, and of course now it is owned by the park. Let's go hop aboard our first ride of the day, the Disneyland Railroad. Womp, womp, womp. Unfortunately, our train broke down, and this actually happens a lot with the Disneyland Railroad. These are vintage trains. These are not brand new fancy attractions. The steam you see coming out, that's real. This is a real operating train. So we're going to try to maybe catch the rest of that ride a little bit later. But right now, we are running late for our breakfast with Minnie. We made reservations to have a special character breakfast at Plaza Inn. Now, during the day, this becomes a quick service restaurant, but if you're there during the breakfast hours, you'll need a reservation. It's very popular. Minnie hosts a buffet breakfast with a lot of her friends. It's one of the hottest tickets in the park. It's also in one of the original restaurant locations. Plaza Inn was here on opening day, although back then it was called the Red Wagon Inn. But this is one of the few restaurants you can dine in here at Disneyland that is very similar to how it was when the park opened. So let's go say hey to Minnie and have some breakfast. Well, that was a delicious breakfast, but now we are back in the chaos of this park today. It is crazy here, y'all. There are a lot of people here today. But that, of course, means that we got to get a jump on things because we got a lot of attractions that we want to do. We're going to go ahead and jump on our next opening day attraction, the Main Street Vehicles. This was actually one of Walt's favorite features in the park. His number one was the train, but his second favorite were these vehicles that were designed by legendary Imagineer Bob Gurr. Bob Gurr's passion was designing vehicles. He worked on the monorail, he created the original cars for Autopia, and he created these Main Street vehicles that were here on opening day. Walt loved these vehicles so much that sometimes before the park was open, he'd hop on board and drive them around the park. I've actually never ridden the Main Street vehicles here at Disneyland, so I'm really excited to try it out. Actually, different signs you'll see here at Town Square telling you where the different vehicles will pick folks up, so let's go find a line and hop in it. Moving down Main Street, it will probably come as no surprise that the Emporium was in fact open on opening day. Another popular stop was the Main Street Cinema. You could pop in there and see early animated films, including some of the early Disney animated shorts. Today, however, there is a brand new show that just opened all about the Sherman Brothers. They, of course, wrote many of the classic Disney songs that you know and love, from the songs of Mary Poppins to It's a Small World, so I am really excited to check out this show. Let's go ahead inside. I love that the heart of that attraction is the final verse of It's a Small World, which was not included in the ride until today. Starting today, there is an additional verse that you may have never heard from It's a Small World. Unfortunately, that was not an opening day attraction, so we're not going to be riding it for this video, but we're definitely going to ride it while we're here. And who knows, maybe we'll take video of that ride when we go through and share it over on our Patreon channel. Welcome back, everyone. You are right on time for our virtual queue to go see the man himself, Walt Disney. We're heading inside the Main Street Opera House. This was here on opening day. However, on opening day, it was just a facade. There was actually nothing behind that facade until many years later when the movie Babes in Toyland came out. They actually did an exhibit for Babes in Toyland inside. That was the first time there was ever anything inside of the Main Street Opera House. If that movie is not ringing a bell for you, if you've been to Magic Kingdom for the Very Merry Christmas Party and you see those tin soldiers marching down the street, they are from Babes in Toyland. But the show we're going to see today is brand new, and what's really exciting about it is that it includes an animatronic of Walt Disney himself, telling a bit of his story. When you enter the Opera House, the first thing you're going to see is the legendary bench where Walt Disney claims he was sitting as he watched his daughters on the merry-go-round and dreamed of Disneyland. In his mind, there should be a place where parents and children could go and both be entertained at the same time. So we actually know from other accounts that Disney was dreaming up Disneyland many years before that, but that's the story that Walt likes to tell, so that's the story that we're going to go with.
You know, I was stopped one day when the little boy asked, "Do you draw Mickey Mouse?" And I had to admit I do not draw anymore. But there's really no secret about our approach. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors, doing new things.
Okay, I have to nerd out for a moment because this is really cool. When you come out of the theater, you're going to see this huge mural and it's beautiful. But look at this. The very first thing you see on this mural is the toy soldier from Babes in Toyland. And as we said as we were coming in, this was the first thing to ever be inside this space. So that's just so cool that they thought to put the soldier there to be the first thing you see in the mural when it was the first thing that existed here. That's just one of those little details a lot of folks probably aren't going to notice, but now when you come here, you're going to notice it and know why it's there. And with that, our Main Street USA journey is complete, and now it is time for Eric to unlock our next land. And with that, Eric has unlocked our second land of the day, Fantasyland. And our first attraction was not only the heart of that land, it was the heart of this entire park. Sleeping Beauty Castle is the most iconic landmark in this park. Walt liked to call this a weenie. So he was fond of eating hot dogs with his dog, and he would put the weenie on a stick and he would lead the dog around with the weenie. And he said to the Imagineers that all of the lands in his park needed to have that weenie to draw people in, and this was the grandest weenie of them all. Now, when it first opened, however, there was nothing inside. It was just an empty shell. And a lot of folks would come up and ask, "Walt, what's inside the castle? What's inside the castle?" And eventually he decided that they needed to put something worthwhile in there. So he headed inside with a team, including some Imagineers, and there was nothing in there except for a whole bunch of feral cats. So one of those Imagineers, according to legend, was wearing a white suit, and within minutes, his white suit appeared black because it was so covered in fleas from those feral cats. So thankfully, they were able to find good homes for those cats, and they built the first attraction inside of Sleeping Beauty Castle. Now, that attraction is no longer there. It actually cycled through a bunch of different attractions over the years, but right now, it's a really cool walkthrough where you experience the story of Sleeping Beauty. Let's go check it out. Our next stop is Peter Pan's Flight. This is another opening day attraction, but it probably shouldn't have been an opening day attraction because it definitely wasn't ready to open. The track system was notoriously fickle, and apparently right after the park opened, an elderly couple was riding, and they came to that scene where Captain Hook is threatening to blast Peter Pan out of the sky, and the cannon goes off, and bam, the track actually broke, and this elderly couple came crashing down and fell out of the vehicle. The cast members, of course, rushed up to them and wanted to make sure that they were okay, and they stood up and brushed themselves off and said that they couldn't wait to ride again because it was the most realistic ride in all of Disneyland. All's well that ends well, but it was definitely a scary opening for Peter Pan's Flight. Today, however, it's a pretty safe ride, so let's go hop on board. Well, thankfully, we made it out of Peter Pan's Flight alive, and we didn't fall from the track, so I really do love the version of Peter Pan's Flight here. I think it's a lot better than the one that we have at Disney World. So if you're visiting and you usually go to Disney World's Peter Pan's Flight and you think, oh, I've ridden that one, you definitely want to do this one because it's a lot different, and in my opinion, it's a lot better. Our next attraction is another opening day attraction, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Fun fact about Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, this was actually a pretty groundbreaking use of ride technology at the time. Black lights had never been used in a dark ride attraction quite like this. You might have seen it in something like a haunted house, but here the Imagineers were using it to do some pretty impressive effects for the day. Today, since we're doing all the opening day attractions, it's definitely on our must-do list. Our next opening day attraction is Snow White's Enchanted Wish, although on opening day, this attraction was a bit different, and it was called Snow White and Her Adventures. I do have a fun little story about this attraction, but it includes a spoiler for the end of the ride. So let's go ride it first, and then I'll share my story. This attraction has changed a lot over the years, but the change that I want to talk about happened pretty early on. When this attraction first opened, the whole idea behind it was that you were on Snow White's adventure. You were Snow White, so you were seeing the story from her point of view. Unfortunately, the guests kept coming off and saying, where was Snow White? We went on the Snow White ride and we couldn't find Snow White. And Walt and the Imagineers got tired of trying to explain, no, 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 you are supposed to be Snow White. So finally they decided they were going to add Snow White in at the end. Now, as you can tell, when we rode this, they've added Snow White into a whole lot of scenes. It's a very different ride now. When the park opened, Fantasyland was definitely the land with the most attractions. As you're going to see when we get to these other lands, there really wasn't much to do. But here in Fantasyland, there was a ton to do. There were even some attractions that were almost ready to go and were expected to be ready, but didn't quite open in time. One of those was Dumbo. If you watch that opening day broadcast, you can see Dumbo there in one of the shots, but it's not moving. That's because Dumbo wasn't quite finished yet. Originally, the plan was that the ears on Dumbo would flap, and eventually, when it opened, they did flap, but they just kept breaking. It wasn't a very reliable component of the attraction, so unfortunately, they did remove Dumbo's flapping ears, and that probably was part of the reason it wasn't quite ready to go on opening day. We still have a few more opening day attractions to do in Fantasyland. However, there is an attraction in Frontierland that is about to have its last run of the day. The Mark Twain Riverboat closes a little bit early, so for that reason, we're going to move on into Frontierland.
Flying over the stockade has 13 stars, commemorating America's first period of independence.
Now that we have unlocked Frontierland, I am definitely ready to eat. So our very first stop is going to be the Golden Horseshoe. Today, the Golden Horseshoe is a quick service restaurant. You can even mobile order from here, but on opening day of the park, this was the showpiece of Frontierland. You could come here to see live entertainment, and of course, there was delicious food on offer as well. One of my favorite little details of this place, look to the left of the stage. So stage right, you're gonna see a table that's roped off. That was Walt's favorite table here. So whenever he was in Frontierland, he was usually sitting in that very spot. And it looks like our mobile order's ready, so I'm gonna go grab some food. That was definitely one of the more interesting treats I've had here at Disneyland. I'd never tried that one before. It's basically French fries covered in hamburger meat with some cheese and some sort of burger secret sauce on top. It's kind of like a Big Mac turned into a plate of fries. It was good. My favorite part was actually the sweet pickles. Well, now that our bellies are full, it is time to go hop aboard the Mark Twain Riverboat. This is another one of those opening day attractions. In fact, when this attraction opened, it was so popular, it nearly sank. The images you'll see, it looks like it's going under. It's way down with so many people. Today, however, the crowd looks very manageable. So let's get on the Mark Twain Riverboat and see the sights around the rivers of America. Our final opening day attraction that is still here in Frontierland is the Shootin' Exposition. This one has definitely been upgraded in a significant way because when it opened, they used lead munitions. And so when you fired those little lead pellets, it actually chipped the paint. And they had to have a team come in every single night and repaint this attraction. Believe it or not, they did this for decades until they finally upgraded it to its current, more automated version. So let's go try our aim and play a game at the Shootin' Exposition. We have now unlocked Adventureland. That was actually the first one we've seen that's indoors so far. That was inside of the Adventureland Bazaar. There's only one opening day attraction that still remains, as far as I'm aware of, here in Adventureland, and that is the Jungle Cruise. But the original Jungle Cruise was nothing like the Jungle Cruise of today. Most importantly, it wasn't funny. It was just a boat cruise where you saw some animatronic animals from around the world and a bunch of plants. The funny thing about those plants was a lot of them were actually orange trees. Those orange trees had actually been here before the park was here, because this was originally an orange grove, and they decided to save money. They would keep a lot of those trees and use them for the Jungle Cruise. Unfortunately, oranges don't grow in all those places around the world, so they would have to get cast members every day to go and pick the oranges that were growing on the trees to keep the illusion that you were going around the world on the Jungle Cruise. It wasn't until many years later that legendary Imagineer Mark Davis, he was known as the Imagineer who brought the funny to the parks. He added a lot of humor to different attractions. So you can thank Mark Davis when you're laughing at or groaning along with the different puns you hear from your skipper on the Jungle Cruise. The time has come to unlock our final opening day land here at Disneyland, and that is, appropriately enough, Tomorrowland. Now, much of Tomorrowland, as it was originally designed, was actually meant to imagine what the 1980s were going to look like, and I think we can all agree that's not necessarily what the 80s looked like. However, this is one of those lands that has constantly evolved along with our idea of what the future was going to be. There are really only two things in Tomorrowland that are immediately recognizable from opening day. One of them is still essentially the same attraction as it was. It's been upgraded, of course, over the years, and it's a lot prettier now than it was. It also runs a lot better. That one is Autopia. Autopia was designed by Bob Gurr, who is one of the most legendary Imagineers of all time. We actually saw him earlier, which was very cool. He was riding in one of the Main Street vehicles that he designed down Main Street. That was definitely a highlight of this day. Bob Gurr is mostly known for his work designing vehicles, although he did a lot more than that. In fact, the Matterhorn is one of his creations. For the opening day of the park, probably his signature attraction was Autopia. This was one of the most popular attractions at Disneyland on opening day. Kids flocked to this thing. The idea of kids being able to drive their own car was just mind-blowing at the time. So this was, and still is, a very cool attraction, especially if you've got little ones. They're about to completely redo Autopia, and it's going to feature, for the first time ever, electric vehicles. Bob Gurr actually gave this news his seal of approval. He said he's very excited to see this next iteration of his legendary opening day attraction. So without further ado, let's unlock this land and go ride Autopia. When we came into Tomorrowland, I said that there were two things remaining from opening day, sorta. So one was Autopia. That was definitely here. The other was a rocket that wasn't technically functioning yet. It was part of an attraction that wasn't open, but it was the weenie. It was the thing that drew people into Tomorrowland. It was huge. Now, that rocket no longer exists. However, there is an homage to that rocket that is here at Pizza Planet. I feel like that is the icon remaining here in Tomorrowland that pays tribute to that opening day version of the park. And I'm so glad it's still here. Well, the sun is setting on our 70th anniversary adventure, but the fun is not done just yet, because if you'll remember, there were a few attractions left in Fantasyland that we didn't get a chance to cover earlier. So we're headed back into Fantasyland to ride a few more remaining opening day attractions. Let's go do it. The Mad Tea Party was a hugely popular opening day attraction, mainly because the teacups themselves had almost no friction at the time. You could spin them incredibly fast. The problem was people were spinning them so fast they were coming off of the rotors. Another attraction that was having some maintenance issues on opening day was the Casey Jr. Circus Train. Now, if you watch the opening day footage, it looks like people are riding it and it's running, but it was not functional. It had some safety issues that had not been worked out, so it wasn't safe to ride. I think that the footage that we're seeing was actually staged just for the show. The train did open, however, a few days later. So since that one wasn't technically open, we're not going to ride Casey Jr. We're not going to count it as an opening day attraction. But our next ride, Canal Boats of the World, now known as the Storybook Land Canal Boats, was very much open on opening day, even though it was not the greatest attraction. In fact, a lot of the cast members referred to it as the Mud Bank ride, because while it was intended to be a voyage through the canals of the world, and there were supposed to be these little scenes created depicting countries around the world, none of that was done yet. So it was basically a boat ride where the boats frequently broke down and the banks that you were looking at were just mud banks. There was nothing there. There weren't even plantings there. So the cast members would actually stand out front of the attraction and warn people not to ride it. They would say, don't spend your money riding this ride, because back then you had to buy tickets to ride each ride. So people were paying to ride it, but people didn't care. They wanted to ride every ride in this brand new park. They paid the money and they rode Canal Boats of the World, even though it was basically Walt's Mud Bank ride. We have arrived at our final opening day attraction, King Arthur Carousel, and I feel like it's only appropriate that we're ending with a carousel, since according to legend, this entire park was dreamed up by Walt Disney as he sat watching his daughters on a carousel. A fun fact about this particular carousel though, before this one, the horses on carousels would typically be in all different sorts of poses, but Walt Disney believed that only the galloping horses were really exciting to ride. So he told the Imagineers he wanted all of his horses to be jumpers or to be galloping. So the Imagineers actually had to raid a bunch of different carousels to get enough of the jumpers to make this very special carousel for Disneyland. So let's go select one of the fabulous galloping horses and ride King Arthur Carousel. We have ridden all of the opening day attractions and unlocked all of the opening day lands, but we have one final mission, and that is that we need to unlock the different lands that weren't here on opening day. So let's head around the park, unlock those final locks, and then we can open the finale lock at the front of the park and find out what our magical surprise is. Let's go do it. Well, we completed all of the locks, and when we opened the last lock, the little door opened up on the key and there was a pin inside, and the one that we got was for Galaxy's Edge. Now, apparently there's a different Disneyland pin for each land that you can get, and then there is a special rare pin, which sadly we did not get. I like Star Wars, so I'm good with Galaxy's Edge, but I have to say, for the purposes of this video, I do wish it had been an opening day land, but que sera, sera. What an amazing day we just had, though. We had so much fun going back in time and really discovering how much of this park is very much like it was when Walt opened it 70 years ago. Now, of course, there's a whole lot of new magic on top of it, but the heart of the park is definitely very much still here. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed joining us on this journey, and if you did, help us out by giving this video a like, subscribing to our channel, and then ringing that bell. That way you'll be notified whenever new videos like this come out. Before we go, I do want to give a huge thank you to our Patreon family. Thank you so much for making videos like this possible, and believe me, this Disneyland adventure would not be possible without your support, so thank you so much. If you'd like to join them and get access to exclusive bonus content, head on over to patreon.com/earscouts. Until next time, don't forget to think happy thoughts, everybody. We'll see you again real soon.